And
Recording in progress.
to the advisory board for Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. This is our monthly scheduled meeting, so we'll conduct business, official business before we get into the presentations. Excuse me. And we've moved up public works because they have a commitment later on. So can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Belker?
Here.
Mr. Collet?
Here.
Mr. DeGirolamo? Mr. Jeffress?
Here.
Ms. Metellus Thompson?
Here.
Ms. Milroy?
Here.
Mr. Ortolani?
Here.
Ms. Perryman Jones?
Here.
And Chair Brown.
Present. Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to allow Melinda Bowker, board member, to participate remotely.
I second.
Who made the motion?
Oh,
Okay.
I made the motion.
That motion, is there a
of the
second?
meeting. Second.
Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Welcome. Very good. We have the April 15th meeting from last month that we need to approve. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at them? Are there any additions or corrections? Melinda, are you good?
All good for me.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion for approval. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Is, motion passes. Is there, for neighborhood support? Rich, thank you for joining us. We have Rich now. Is there anyone signed up for neighborhood support, neighborhood input?
Chair, she did not sign up, but we have a guest that just arrived.
This belongs to Eddie.
Are you speaking, Maggie? Did you want to speak?
Yeah, if it's okay.
Okay, just make sure you sign in that before you leave.
Sign in where?
You can see me.
But go ahead, you can sign in after you talk, please.
So my neighborhood, the Civil and Civic Association, we want to say thanks to the budget advisory committee. The mayor and the city commissioners also were able to start the press because of you all. Start the process of a neighborhood vision plan, which was completed last year. And now the city is weeks away from hosting the open house for the streetscape master plan, and you guys are all invited to come to that. We're a historic neighborhood, and so it's for everyone. And we want to look forward to 2027 and ask the Budget Advisory Committee to please consider earmarking the appropriate adequate amount for the rest of our master plan. We broke it up so it wouldn't be so costly to do in just 1 year. And that would be the new development plan, because in the last year or two, we've had much increased pressure from developers to put things that maybe are appropriate, and we'd really like to have a consulting firm help us with that. And that was part of the original plan to do. But also with that, the sea level rise adaptation part of it, which is probably you guys are aware that everybody got flooded, and so we're just trying to, we were severely impacted by the flood a couple of years ago. Thank you very much.
Okay. I know, Maggie, at the last meeting on the presentations, we asked about that. It was anything included in this budget. Is anyone from staff to give an update?
So Chair Brown, no enhancement was requested for the sailboat bend master plan. I don't know if there's already funding in place that may have rolled over. I can.
Yeah, I think it's still in some implementation phase
Oh,
of
there.
that plan.
Yeah, that was my impression as well, that the funding from last year, everything had been earmarked, and they're completing what that money was set for during this budget cycle. And then once it's determined what's needed from the studies that are coming back for in the 2028 budget for it to further enhance and move that plan along. It's the way I understood it.
So that would include what we were asking. Because that's only for the streetscape, we broke it up, so it wouldn't be.
I'm sorry,
big expense.
we're having trouble hearing up here.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not, part of our revenue for today, that's just for the streetscape plan we did, last year, the streetscape funded it because, doing the whole thing would be so expensive in 1 year. So this would be the next, phase to get a consulting firm to do the new development and,
May I ask what's the ask in terms of budget repercussions?
you know what, I don't know that, but I'd hope it'd be between 100 and 200,000.
For fiscal year 2027.
Okay. Thank you. We'll address that with staff then, when we have our discussions after all the presentations and as we move forward. Thank you for that input. Is there any other additional old business? If not, moving on to new business. Excuse me. We need to discuss the potential of a special meeting date. I'm gonna turn it to staff since they put together a couple proposed dates and a third option for in lieu of a special meeting, and I'll let Laura address that.
Thank you, Chair Brown, and thanks to Charmaine for sending out the options and trying to secure the room for the potential. Understanding we have only a few days because of some travel schedules, we proposed 2 options for special meetings. And then there's a third option we'd also like to share. On June 10th is your next regularly scheduled budget advisory board where you'll hear about the city manager's preliminary budget balancing strategies for 2027. We don't believe that will take more than an hour. So one option would be to extend that meeting and start at 4 o'clock and go later. And so your special meeting could start at 4, and then you could hear from the city manager at your regular meeting at 5. The other 2 dates that were proposed were June 11th, which is the very next day after your regularly scheduled meeting, and then Monday, June 15th, which would be the Monday right afterwards, the day before your meeting with the city commission. So those are the 3 dates. Charmaine did reach out and we did not yet get a quorum on either date that was proposed for the special meeting. So that is for you to discuss. If you wanted a special meeting, if you wanted to extend your regular meeting, or none of the above, whatever you'd like.
Open it up for discussion.
Thank you. Can we actually remind everybody what's at stake and why we would actually request a potential extra meeting? Laura, if I may?
Sure, so
Were you going to?
were you
I was going to.
Oh, I thought you said, can we remind, I didn't know.
Well, you can also,
Yeah,
if I'm not complete enough or you want to correct me,
No,
feel free.
go ahead.
But I think it would behoove my colleagues to understand the idea behind that. We had an April joint commission workshop where 3 or 4 of us were present, and we tried to represent the job, the work that we started together with the subject matter experts and the presentation that we'd like to bring together to the commission. There was a lot of interest for several commissioners in regard with this new direction that Chairman Brown has helped nurture. And the interest of the commission was, we'd like to hear you, and June is a time to deliver because we didn't deliver in April for many reasons, and lots of things are still in the air in terms of the budget process. We need to deliver, and also the commission was connecting the City Hall question to the big picture of the budget balancing act fiscal year 2027 and beyond. So we might not have all the numbers, but we might have some temporary numbers by June. So the idea was to prepare a framework that we can work around. It's a structure. We can fine tune the content. We can go back and forth between meetings through staff, obviously, and discuss it. I think 2 meetings up to the commission would be a little short, given the fact that some subjects like the CRA and some other subjects have not been entirely covered. So I would suggest that we get it together and work a little harder as a team to complete an impressive presentation. To that effect, I put together a structure. It was a draft, that I started 3 weeks ago, that I refined recently and you received it through staff, that I think would be not a few slides here and there, but a real storyline, a real process, a real strategic approach reflecting our in-depth work together, and that puts the pieces together and gets to a millage rate policy set of options and showing the consequences on the budget, on the balancing act. Whatever the Stantec reveal and the Marty Kiar, the appraiser for the property tax is gonna bring in June. So I think we need to work together more and more interactively and you know, finalize beyond the structure the content. I don't want it to be too heavy, but I want it to be significant and reflecting of the quality of the work we all did. So I'd like to have the opportunity to present my structure and have you react to it. I don't know if today is a relevant day to do that.
We're gonna take some time after,
Okay,
if we keep, if we're
so
on
that was the
time.
thinking behind the extra session that we would have before the Joint Commission workshop, June 16th.
And then if we keep the June 10th schedule, we can start an hour early if that's the pleasure of the board, or go an hour later, go 5 to 8 versus 4 to 7. Because other than the city's manager budget proposal presentation, which is a preliminary budget, it should be presenting to the commission. I think, as Laura's Yvette said, would be about an hour. And then we would have time to dedicate a couple hours that night.
That's your.
But, so I'm just gonna go around the room. Is there a preference, Rich? Do you?
I'm open. An hour, maybe an hour later if I had a preference, but
Okay.
if that's not good with people, I'm fine with anything.
Max?
Come back to me.
Samantha?
I'm fine, whichever decision, I'm open.
I'm for the hour later,
Later.
5 to 8.
Melissa?
I'm fine with any of them, but if I was voting, I would vote for 4 to 7. Prior to the meeting.
Melinda?
I guess my preference would be that we start early on the June 10 instead of having the additional date, or go later. But get it all done on June 10.
Jason?
I'm open to all of the options, but I would narrowly prefer going early on June 10th. People will get tired.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. And my preference is we start an hour earlier if possible. That way staff can get home at a
I'll change
reasonable hour.
my pick there earlier.
Same preference for me as well.
Can make it work.
Okay. So now, does that take a vote to change the time?
So I believe you would be setting a special meeting for June 10th, beginning at 4 p.m. Would be the motion that we would need, and so we'll start the special meeting at 4, and then your regular scheduled meeting would start at 5.
And then if we had to, we can pause the special meeting and then come back at the end of the regular meeting if we need additional time.
Or you could just continue it in your
Okay.
regular scheduled meeting.
Okay. So that needs to be in the form of a motion for a special meeting and a roll call.
I'll make the motion for the special meeting to begin at 4 o'clock on June 10. I believe. For an hour prior to our regular scheduled meeting.
Second.
I second it.
Seconded by Samantha. Can I have a roll call vote?
Ms. Belker?
Yes.
Mr. Coe?
Yes?
Mr. DiGirolamo?
Yes.
Mr. Jeffers?
Yes.
Ms. Metellus Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Milroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ortolani?
Yep.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Perryman Jones?
Yes.
And Chair Brown?
Yes.
That's 9-0.
Okay. And is there any other new business before we continue down the I don't anticipate any communication to the city commission. Staff, do you see any need to communicate since we'll be meeting on the 16th with the commission? Okay, very good. Are there any additional board comments? Linda or any other board member?
So we're gonna have an opportunity to discuss today?
Yes.
Okay, when, after the presentation of the department?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, if there's no additional board member comments, I'll motion to adjourn the regular meeting and move right in to presentations. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Good. Motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good evening, Brad.
Good evening.
As our Public Works Director. Is this your first budget presentation, or were you here last?
Well, this is the second one for
Second
this year, but this is the first process.
Okay.
that I've
Well,
been
welcome
through
to
with
the first.
Budget Advisory Board. So let me start off by thanking you, Chairman Brown, and all of the members of the committee. Much appreciate all the work, and certainly always take the feedback and try and incorporate some of those things into our departmental budgets each year. It's real important. The more we can ascertain from this group to help us be as efficient as possible, it's real important to us, and we take it very seriously. So I just wanna thank you all for your hard work. I would like to just take a moment. I wanna really recognize, some people on our team here. This was pretty new for us, as I explained at the last meeting. This is our really first full year with a split from now the utility to both Al and I having separate functions, and some people on our team really had to step into some newer roles, and I just wanna give a shout out to some of the members of our team, our Deputy Director, Todd Haichu, our Assistant Director, Troy Geis, our Assistant Director as well, O'Neill Rodriguez, and some special thank yous to Patricia Jolly, who's really our budget manager for this process, and this really was the first one, and just her and her team, Barbara Smith and Shannon Barrett, they just did an outstanding job to get us to this point, and really under her first year of leadership doing this, and I really wanna commend the team for it, cause it was a little challenging this year, and they've just done a fantastic job, so I wanted to make sure I recognize them in front of everybody here today. So my presentation is really gonna be just more kinda just high level type things going into next year. And really here to just our team is here to answer really any questions that you may have about anything, but just going into this for Public Works, just our base budget from 26 to 27 really isn't changing much. It's about 119 million to about 120 million on our baseline budget, so not really much change there. The only real significant package that we have as it relates to budget decision packages is about $1 million package in stormwater operations and maintenance. And a lot of that is really relating to the continued success of the Fortify Phase 1 projects that have completed. And we have new assets that are really now added to the system, so it creates, for example, 5 more new pump stations, some outfalls, a lot of linear feet of stormwater gravity mains, and exfiltration reaches, and also square footage of our soil maintenance has increased a lot. So there's a lot of things that the operations and maintenance stormwater team is taking on. So this package is really to address some of the additional costs that we'll have, not so much in staff, because we're not asking for staff, but really more for some of our additional work that we need to do in contractual maintenance services on some overtime as well, so we can plug and program these things into our annual maintenance budget. And as more of the Fortify projects continue to grow to completion, you'll see a little bit more of those kind of requests coming forward. I also want to just touch on the Fortify projects as well. We're getting a lot of traction with our last little 3 projects as it relates to it. Victoria Park is underway. Southeast Isles is approximately 60% design, and that project hopefully is expected to go out, for bid and be hopefully in construction at some time in the later end of 27. And we have awarded through a unsolicited process, just recently, Melrose Manor and Riverland. That's really the biggest project we've ever had. It's about $172 million project to Mancon and David Mancini. And we expect that project to be about 2 years, and that's gonna make a huge difference, in the District 3 area in Melrose and Riverland, because they don't have any drainage there whatsoever. So we're really excited about that and the expedited process that's gonna take. So those are just some of the highlights, as it relates to the Fortify. Just a note, we're gonna continue to maintain a significant amount of capital projects. We'll have about 170 of them that are an estimated budget about $283 million. The majority of that is in Fortify. We also have utility projects that we're working on. We do some underground as well. But a lot of the projects now that are vertical, City Hall, fire stations and such, they're all under the guidance now of Colette in capital projects and the Parks bond as well in that area as well. So, but we will still maintain a significant amount of them as well going forward. So one of the other things that's important to note this year for us that we're in the process of starting right now and will continue into next year is we are working on getting the department accredited. That's never been done in the city before, and we feel it's a very, very significant milestone and accomplishment to do, and our team is dedicated to working on that, and hopefully, within a 1 to 2 year period, we should have that accreditation from APWA, which is the American Public Works Association. And it's a really big distinction and honor to have that. There are not a lot of organizations in the state of Florida that have it, so we feel we want to set the bar, and we're really looking forward to that process kicking underway this year. We have folks going to the PWX, which is the national conference in August with me as well, and we're gonna be doing a lot of training there and getting all the tools we need in place so we can, get that process going. I think that's really the highlights. Again, we're not really asking for personnel this year, so there's no real request as far as that goes. But I just wanted to touch on some of those real important items as we're going into 2027 for the department. One other note, we have a slight reduction in staff from the 236 to 231, and that's because 5 people went over to the capital projects team.
Okay, and you're well under your 10 minutes, so.
I'm trying to stick within the time frame.
Okay, well, we'll just open it up to questions from boards, and we'll start with Melinda.
Thanks for that summary. Great overview, Brad. No questions for me.
Thank you. Melissa?
Yeah, no, great presentation, and I don't have any questions, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, and I'm excited that I can report back to Melrose Manor that that project is finally getting underway. I'm very happy to hear that.
We're excited too.
Thank you.
Great presentation, but no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. No questions.
I'm good as well.
2 quick questions.
I
What's
was doing so good.
Should I skip? I mean, city manager, what should I do? Are we here not to ask questions?
The over and under on the amount of questions is what
We
people
average,
gotta-
that's why my colleagues were so kind.
We had a wager in the department, so
I'm hoping you'll find my question interesting.
go ahead.
If not you, maybe my colleagues.
Sure.
Number of storm drains, inlet clean, so current year projection 4,800. Next year target 5,100. When do we get sort of everything covered? What's the coverage? How many?
I'm glad you asked that question. We're having these conversations about 30 minutes ago. And I'm gonna let our
So you
deputy-
okay with my question?
I'm absolutely great question.
It's funny, I was gonna ask it.
Great
Seriously, I was gonna ask the same question.
Sorry, Bill.
Yeah, no, that's
So,
fine.
You're about to have a great answer.
He does have a great
Well,
answer,
I'll be the judge of that. You can judge me on questions.
Touche.
The cleanings are a function of the inspection. So we inspect the assets twice a year, the catch basin, and then if the catch basin needs cleaning, that follows a work order for cleaning. So our goal is to inspect the catch basins at least twice a year. We have about 10,000 catch basins in our system, and as you see, we're at, right now, we're at 15,000. So we still have a few months left in the fiscal year, so we're gonna hit that target. So that number's gonna vary from year to year. And to even back up further, when we look at these performance measures every year, we prepare for the budget as we're at in the business plan that we have. We work closely with structural innovation, on Erica's team, to look at kind of where we're at, the trends and the metrics, to see if they're reasonable, accomplishable, things like that. So that's why you see the numbers are kind of consistent over the years, and maybe some come up and down, but that's really going to be the fact from a cause of inspection needed.
Gotcha.
From the inspection basis.
Gotcha. Follow-up question, is that an extra million every year? I mean, is that like an average number that's gonna be very similar from fiscal year 27 to 28? Is that predictable?
As Brad alluded to, we have a budget decision package for fiscal year 27.
Yes.
To increase, so as more assets come online, as 4 to 5 projects come to completion, and as those 4 to 5 projects age, we would expect that probably number to increase a little bit more, as now assets been in the ground for maybe 7 to 8 years, they may need a little bit more maintenance, a little bit more cleaning. But right now, we feel it's comfortable and consistent trend right now that we're comfortable with where we're at with budget wise and resources.
Yeah, just to follow on to that, and I appreciate that, Todd. I think at some point in the future, as more assets, get into the system and as we complete, more of these projects, there will be probably a point in a time, we will have to look at, adding, more, staff for the day-to-day operations of this. I'm not sure we're really right there yet. We're managing, but I would probably tell you in the future years, that there is gonna be an ask probably for additional staff because this is this Fortify program is bringing a lot of great things, but it also brings a lot of future maintenance, and I think if we don't address those things today, down the road, we're just gonna be having a bigger problem, and we don't wanna have that happen, so we wanna try to, have a proactive approach to it, and when we feel we need to add the staff assets to address, all of the assets that are coming on, as a result of the program, we're gonna come forward and we're gonna say, hey, this is what we need and this is exactly the reasons why.
We try to take a strategic approach and try to analyze the trends and kind of see where we're at, instead of just, asking for money, that type of thing, kind of see where we're at. So we're very strategic on budget-wise and ask.
Quick follow-up.
Just one quick add-on, as you look at the Stantec model, you'll see that we're building that in year over year, we're really projecting those
I didn't see the
expenses.
detailed number.
Yeah, so when you get the Stantec model.
Okay,
you'll
so there is
see
some
that.
predictability and the econometrics.
Mhm.
Follow-up question, how are you gonna interface and synergize and produce beneficial results with capital projects, with Colette? How is it gonna mesh, and are you gonna coordinate your efforts?
It already is, isn't it?
We do, we work very well together.
Examples?
Well, some of in any transition that you have, when there's an additional department created, there are some functions that are going to blend over together, and one of those functions, for example, is our undergrounding program, and it's kind of working in a dual stream with some of the staff that went over there from Colette's team to, some newer projects that are coming on that we're still gonna be involved in. So, I think examples like that are going to be where there's gonna be collaborative efforts, but as far as the way the other, project are laid out in terms of responsibility levels, they're pretty straightforward and split. Although, anything in the ground and things like that are all under our purview, including utilities, and everything standing straight up in the air, and parks bond type projects are really going to be in our house. So there's a real easy delineation of functions, so we're very both aware of what we have to do, and again, where there are some overlap, we're working very closely together on those things.
My question, I have in mind the potential new city hall and how you would
That's definitely not in my house.
But I look forward to learning more, thank you.
If I could just add something, we are in the process of trying to procure project management software that would be utilized by both departments and probably utility services as well, to make sure that we're all speaking the same language. And so I found that, various departments have different tools, and I think we all have to get on the same page with how we are tracking projects. And so that's one of the things that all three of those directors are working on together.
Is there an ask for fiscal year 2027 behind that software?
Yes, sir.
We'll hear it from you, okay, got it, thank you. No more question.
I didn't have any additional questions, but Olivier's point just about the measures resonated with what I thought about when I had looked at them, just that number of storm drains and inlets cleaned. I just didn't have a good sense of what the universe is, so for those measures, so it's hard for me to sort of figure out how are we doing in terms of inspecting and maintaining our universe of assets.
Good answer, kind
Oh.
Okay.
I left out one small little thing that I really wanted to add just for everybody's edification on the fortify that I think it's important. So in this coming summer, I think towards the end of June, we will see additional bond funding to the total of somewhere in the ballpark of $330 million. A lot of that will go to finish up all the phase one projects, but what we are gonna be able to get underway as well this year and rolling into FY '27 will be the phase two first probably three projects, which is Melrose Park, stormwater improvements, not to be confused with Melrose Manor, Middle River, Terrace stormwater improvements and Lauderdale Isles, Oak River, River Landing, and the adjoining areas around there for stormwater improvements. Those are like the first three in phase two, and there will be monies going towards allocated funding for design for those three projects. So we're definitely trying to, really aggressively do these things so, we can get ahead of this stuff and, as the bond money then comes in additionally in '29, we'll really be ready to go for construction and all these things. So I just wanted to add that. I thought that was an important thing so everybody knows where we're at.
Thank you for that. And first, let me just commend you and your staff. I know you came in, the temperature was pretty high with some of the residents that had went through some of the flooding and, a lot of the neighborhoods felt they needed their attention to their neighborhoods. And you've been able to communicate, being very transparent with those neighborhood leaders. And that temperature, from my observation, has been greatly lowered, so thank you for that. And I only have one quick question. And in your detailed budget, under the fleet part, you're increasing from 8,700 to 393,000. And it says for replacement of old jacks, tire changers, and to outfit 3 new fire engines of loose equipment required to outfit these. Are you first of all, why is Public Works paying for it? Is that built into fire budget when they buy an engine? Do you charge back, or how's that all work?
So I can let, I don't know if Yvette wants to, or yeah, if you wanna speak to the budgeting part, I can speak to the process.
Sure, so our fleet budget is an internal service fund, which means that all departments contribute to the fleet fund based upon their use of services. And the reason we have it set up that way is so that each year we can contribute a flat amount for replacement by way of example for a vehicle and for the equipment. So we've accumulated enough funds at the time we need to replace that vehicle. And the reason we do the equipment with the vehicle is that sometimes there's a delay in the timing for purchasing a vehicle, and you don't wanna have the equipment sitting in a warehouse while we're waiting for a vehicle. So we do all of that out of the fleet internal service budget, where we buy the vehicle and the equipment. And then it's fully outfitted when it's turned over to the fire rescue department. That is included in a service charge back to the fire department. And then we include that in the non-ad valorem assessment for fire assessment and things like that.
The fire, okay, so any loose equipment that would be purchased then is ultimately transferred over and recovered back on the fire assessment fee. That's what I wanted to know. Okay, thank you. Okay. I don't think we need to know the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a fire truck. It's a fire truck.
It's a fire truck, you gotta mount the fire extinguisher somehow, so it's, I don't wanna hear that. That's way too in the weeds, thank you. Okay, thank you, and you're free to go, you have a commitment, so, very good. Al, we'll get you started, get you.
Oh, good afternoon, good evening. And good, as Brad said, thank you for the time and thank you for the prelim about any feedback that you could give us on our budget. Albert Carbon, I'm the Utility Service Director, been here for 6 months, and as I said before, did an earlier stint about 12 years ago. I have 3 members of the Utility Services group here, our department, to join us. Talal Abby Cram is our Assistant Director, and Jason Sinfeld and Christina Sutherland help support our budget efforts. Utility Services is the operation and maintenance of the water and wastewater services for the city, which also includes other neighboring cities, especially completely the cities of Wilton Manors, Oakland Park, and Lazy Lakes, complete Port Everglades, and the town of Lauderdale by the Sea. And then we have small portions of the town of Davie and Tamarack and some of unincorporated Broward County. We have 339 full-time positions in the 3 divisions. Administrative Services and Customer Service has 38. Day-to-day operations and strategic planning, including budget. And then they also do the finance, HR, human resources, timekeeping, inventory, management, our dispatch, which is 24/7 for our utility services. They do our CIP funding, consent orders, and our AMI, or smart meter program. We have our distribution collection, operation maintenance of the sewer infrastructure that's between the plants and the customers. This includes service maintenance, utility locates, hydrants, valve and pump station maintenance, leak repair, anything to do with the distribution collection system. The treatment plant has 122 full-time employees, ensures the production of safe drinking water and proper treatment of wastewater. We return that to the environment. So we have 2 water treatment plants that are operational. One that's pending in September, the Prospect Lake Clean Water Center, which will replace one or 5 ash treatment plant, and then we have 1 wastewater treatment plant, GTL, that's located down by Port Everglades. Part of that division is also the fully licensed environmental lab. To give you a magnitude of what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, that with the 339 employees, we have 783 miles of water line, and that ranges from 2 inches to 54 inches. We have 14,600 valves. We have 6,384 hydrants. We got 22.6 million gallons of storage. That's in 2 remote tanks. They're in Mercedes Heights in a downtown area, and then tanks at the 5 ash water treatment plant, and then the Peel Dixie plant. We have a service area of 43 square miles. Let's include those other areas that I talked about earlier. Population about 260,000 people. We have 132 sample points where we sample our potable water or drinking water. We sample that every day to make sure our water meets all regulatory standards. And then we have just over 65,000 meters in our distribution system. That's 60,000 domestic meters and just under 3,887 irrigation only meters. On the treatment plant, on the water side, the 2 treatment plants, we have a capacity of 82 million gallons a day. We average about 40, we peak 47. That capacity is going to go down. 5 ash is currently rated at 70 MGD, or Prospect will be rated at 50 MGD. Well below, and Peel Dixie's at 12 MGD. So that gives us 62 million gallons a day of treatment capacity. We have a permitted use of water at 55.6 MGD. And then we have wells in our system. We have 36 wells that we have the capacity to withdraw up to 102 MGD, just in case wells go in and out. And then the wastewater collection side, we have 479 miles of pipelines, of gravity line, and then 119 force mains. We got 186 pump stations, 3 repump stations, and then the treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, GTO, is rated at 61 MGD. We average about 44 MGD. On the lab side, we take 30,000 samples a day a year, and we test 100,000 tests on those samples. As far as our budget goes, utilities is separated in two funds. One's the 451 fund, which is our central regional wastewater fund, which is contributed by our regional users. The adopted budget of 26 is $31.3 million. The 27 base budget is $32 million, about a 770 difference. That is the increase to our purchase of the liquid oxygen, which we've had problems with the new system that we produced. We expect that to continue to fiscal year 28 while we replace or renovate that new system. Then the utility services, which is the larger fund, it's our 450 fund, which is the water and wastewater sewer fund. Adopted budget is $82 million. The request this year is $112 million, which is just around $30 million differences. And those differences have to do with the changing from Prospect Lake to Five Ash. Part of that is a $20 million availability payment to operate the Prospect Lake facility, and then the increased operation costs of that membrane treatment plant, which is $12.6 million. It also includes a decrease of not having to operate Five Ash, which is a decrease of $6 million. We do have one decision package, which has to do with the Five Ash temporary staffing needs. I know that Five Ash, even though we're starting out Prospect in September, most of our staff from Five Ash have moved to Prospect. So during this transition period, we are operating Five Ash as significantly less permanent staff. So we need to staff Five Ash over this summer and into fiscal year 27 to ensure that that plan is available should something happen. We work with our staff to see about we can work overtime. We're also trying to get temporary part-time staff, and then we've also looked at staffing firms that specifically staff water and wastewater treatment plants, whether they're operators, electric techs, or mechanics. So we've done that. We expect that for fiscal year 27 to be about $4 million and possibly trickling over to 28. It really depends on the operation of Prospect and decommissioning Five Ash somewhere in that late 27, early 28 period. And then I'm available for any questions.
Okay, start with Jason.
Just had one fairly technical question, but I appreciated that you had very specific numbers and targets for reducing the vacancy rate. And I imagine it's just hard to compete for all those kind of skilled technical workers. Is that the main challenge?
Main challenge is we started out significantly higher vacancy rates this year because in fiscal year 26 we started filling the Prospect Lake. So that's why our vacancy rate was really high. So we had to fill those 31 additional positions. So we did that. We're on that. We've been successful reducing it to less. Started at 17. Now we're well below the 10. And you're right. The license requirements and the technical expertise of the electromechanic techs are there. Very specialized work. But our HR department has done a yeoman job. We have met every hiring requirement for the Prospect Lake. We have the next tranche is this week and next week, and then we have mostly administrative staff coming in later in August and September. So from an operational standpoint, we are set. Every position has been hired. But thank you.
Thanks.
Quick question about the overtime. At my request, staff sent us overtime across departments, and utility service department has a big number out of the 3 million, other than public safety, 1,000,024. So it's been reduced since the years before. How do you manage that, and can you explain the dynamics at play behind that?
The dynamics has to do with some of our metrics are broken water lines and broken wastewater. We can't time that out, whether it happens at weekend, at 5 o'clock when staff is, so that's really associated with our overtime.
Is there any improvement or optimization that you have power over?
What we did implement over this past few months is over. We are fully staffed during the first time, and then we have an after hours group, a second shift. What we've gone from to a 3-person staff overnight, so they can take care of if it's a water line and they've done this over this short period of time. They can shut off that water line, especially if it's a service line to a vacant place or a service line to to a building that doesn't need the water line until the next morning. So we can do that. So we've actually looked at that, so we have that staff that they could, we had one person. Can't expect that one person to go out into the community and get any work done. Now, two of them can go out while the other one is taking the calls that come in. So that's been a successful program. Hopefully that will reduce our need to call in staff over that third shift period.
Okay, I see the overtime is increased in fiscal year proposed versus the lowering down for the past years.
But we're looking at the trend, and that's what it is, but hopefully the trend starts going down for fiscal year '28.
Okay, I'll remember that when we meet again.
I will remember to put it in my presentation
Thank
too.
you.
And most water main breaks happen at 5 PM on Friday when Ben Rogers hits that break.
And one thing to note about that increase, we increase it with the salary increase. So as we plan for a projected salary increase of about 6.5%, for those employees, we increase the budget associated with that increase. That's why you'll always see it go up, just to make sure we're keeping pace with salaries.
Well, the actuals of 2026 for utility service department was 1.2 versus 1.8 to 2 million for previous years.
Right, we're still mid-year, so we haven't finalized this year, so it really looks.
Was that a temporary number? It's not a projected for the entire
No, it
year?
doesn't seem to be.
Oh, well,
It's
good.
year-to-date actual.
Good to know.
Yes, sir. So
Thank you for
if you
stating
look
that now.
at the column before that, that would be the FY '25 actual.
Year
So
to
that
date.
gives you a better
It's not
idea.
projection, okay, got
Yes.
it. Sorry, thank you.
Rich?
I'm good, thank you.
Appreciate the presentation, Albert, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albert, that was great. No questions at this time.
Thank you, and no questions?
Same, no questions, thank you.
Oh, Colette, I'm sorry.
Melinda.
Melinda?
Can you hear me? Sorry. Thanks so much, Al. A great presentation, no questions.
Okay. Wow, that leaves it to me now. Did I compete with Oliver on questions or not? So, do you have any further questions? I'll defer my allotment to you if you. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you for the hard work in your staff. I know you had some challenges with customers upset because of high water bills. I think you're trying to do the best you can until we get the smart water meter system in place. And it'll be interesting to see the accuracy at that point, good or bad that it might be for some people, you know. And we'll have to just deal with it at the time and communicating to the citizens, residents. So thank you. Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us here today. Colette Satchel, Director of Capital Projects. I'm joined by two of my team members today, Division Manager Kristen Thompson and Financial Administrator Claire Convoy. As you all know, Capital Projects is a new department started in October of last year. We pulled staff from project management and other staff from Parks and Rec and from Transportation. I arrived at the end of January, and a March budget amendment provided an additional staffing for the department. Most of them coming from public works or positions. We like to summarize our goals in the department as project execution in a timely manner while recruiting and developing knowledgeable professionals and addressing budget challenges, because those are our primary focuses as we move forward. To that end, we are in the process of implementing new software, which includes Microsoft Projects, if you're familiar with that, and staff is gonna be trained on how to properly schedule projects coming up in June. We're also implementing Procore, which is our project management software. I think we're in the final steps of getting the contract approved, but this software is aimed at improving staff efficiency and, establishing standards for data management protocols and so forth. Currently, the cost of the software is being carried by the IT department because it's going to be implemented across many departments. Eventually, I think we'll individually have to carry some subscription costs per person per department. We have a total of 18 positions, 6 of which are vacant right now. We are working feverishly to fill these positions. We have received resumes and screened I think for all, and we actually started interviews this week. We have some really, really good candidates. I'm really impressed from a lot of the in-house people that we've received interest from. That will bring our total staffing number to 18 positions, which will include project engineers and 2 engineering inspectors, which will help us with contract compliance, and of course, help us with QA/QC during construction, amongst other responsibilities. One of the positions also is an assistant to the director and senior administrative assistant, which will establish SOPs, because we're a new department, and then helping us to implement and develop our project budgets and financing, process invoices and payment applications within statutory requirements, right, on a timely manner. An additional project manager 2 position will help expedite the implementation of projects throughout the Parks Bond, as was, I think many of you may have seen our Park Bond implementation plan, which was presented to the commission last night. I'm gonna get into that a little bit more. To address budget shortfalls on upcoming projects, we're analyzing all of our projects, every single one. Where are we? What needs to be done? Are they fully designed and permitting? And that's helping us to decide and get direction for each of the projects. If the projects can be broken into phases to allow work to proceed, we're doing that. But we wanna make sure that all of the scope of work as was described in the Parks Bond is implemented. We have submitted a couple CIP requests, one for Holiday Park, you may have seen, and one for Mills Pond. Both projects are fully designed. Portions of them have been built already. The intent of that request is to make sure that we can complete the work that was initially planned. We've also submitted decision packages for some of the things that we need, that we've identified we need to function properly. One of them is a consulting category, we like to say, for professionals that we can bring in to help us in decision-making, cost analysis of projects, that kind of a thing that, sometimes we have to make a decision on how to fund a project or so forth before it becomes a project. And this gives us a pool of professionals that will help us to develop scope, analyze costs even. Sometimes we see cost estimates are a little bit elevated. We wanna make sure we go back and check it. We could bring in a cost consultant to help us with that. So that's the category that you see we're asking for professionals. And then also because we kind of have an all hands on deck approach right now to the projects. I mean, Christian and I are both acting as PMs on some of the projects just to make sure everything is moving. So I wanna make sure that we have enough safety gear because it's not just 2 inspectors. Everybody goes into the field to look at the projects. Reason is, we currently have 15 projects on the construction, and before the end of the year, we're going to have at least 18, right? We have a total of 136 projects minimum, some of which are phased. So there is a lot of work, and we kind of have to have an all hands on board approach to make sure that we're implementing these projects in a timely manner. So the scheduling software will help us do that, right? The project management software will definitely help us get organized, seeing as we're pulling information from all of these different departments. And it helps us to implement our SOPs. So that's really our department in a nutshell. I'm not sure if I missed anything, ladies, but I think that's everything that we've had to go through. I do wanna say thanks to OMB, though I have a couple minutes, because they have been super supportive in helping us move through this process and getting to where we are today, to get our department set up. Thank you all.
Okay, we'll start with Annette. Anita, do you have any questions? Please.
Thank you for presentation. No questions.
Melissa?
Yeah, I don't have, you're busy. I don't have any questions.
Linda?
No specific questions, and thank you for the update, and just good luck with the new department. I know that there's challenges, obviously, and a lot of opportunities, particularly, with the Parks Bond, and a lot of probably a lot of people talking about the parks. So just thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Samantha?
Great presentation, no questions right now.
Thank you.
My question is, you had mentioned about hiring I may have misunderstood, hiring a consultant or a consulting firm to help with decision-making on projects, was that, can you just refresh my memory on that?
Okay, so we have a fund that we are asking for funding that will allow us to engage as necessary consultants to provide services within all of the projects. We've identified some of the needs where we need to better scope projects at the beginning. We can bring in a consultant to help with a feasibility study before it becomes a project, right? So we can decide what do we want to do on these projects. We have projects, for example, and this fund that we're asking, these funds that we're asking for are generic enough that we can bring in different professionals, they're listed. If we have projects that are going out for bid, if we believe that the price is either over or under, elevated, we can get a cost consultant to come in and take a look and say, this is what it is. There are professionals that help us with that. If we have a project that has constructability issues, if we have a streetscape project that may impact the neighborhood, sometimes we do need to bring in consultants who can help us analyze maintenance of traffic during the process of construction, constructability. How should we phase the projects, right? Because we're looking, as professionals, we're trying to make sure that we are looking at the project, getting the help that we need to make the right decisions.
No, that answered my question. I asked that because I think initially when you hear consultant, you go redundancy. Why don't you just hire somebody who's a subject matter expert in that field in the interviews that you're conducting, and there you go, you hire the solution to the problem.
They're not needed full-time.
And that's, so
It's a specific need.
no problem.
Right.
That answers my question.
And Max, just to add on to that, throughout the year, there's certain projects that come up that we didn't plan for. There are new initiatives that the commission may have, or the manager's office may have, just things that we need to look into. And that particular CIP decision package allows us to, off the radar sort of activities, let's go ahead and address that and keep it moving. So it's for everything Colette just said, but also there's just unforeseen projects that come up that need some extra attention and outside assistance.
What's the number on that? What does that look like? The number and scope for that, do you know? Does someone know? Just curious.
275.
Yeah.
$275,000 over the year?
Yes.
Yeah, I would just say, you have your work cut out for you, but I guess we're kind of setting benchmarks now. I know everybody's got experience going back years, but we're setting the benchmarks now for what the department's gonna look like into the future and how lean it can stay. I just always say with special projects and capital projects to try and stay lean but confident, I guess, right?
Yes. And that's been a goal in our recruitment, because I think we wanna make sure that I tell staff, I want the best person that's out there. Because in developing a team like this with the high stakes that we're facing, I think it's important to get qualified people.
Yeah, and then within the projects themselves, it's like
Yes.
starting a new department every time you get a project,
Yes.
through, so. But congrats,
Thank you.
looking forward to seeing how things evolve.
So to echo your questions, guys, I think it's important to recognize that you can have a pool of consultants as long as they are the good ones, and give you access to resources that you would not necessarily have in-house. It gives you more bandwidth. I think all of that is a good warm-up for a potential new city hall where you'll make a difference, hopefully, because that's gonna be a very complex project if that goes forward, as the commission seems to want to. My question about the guiding principle of fiscal responsibility were Bob. I see the change order value was a percentage of the original construction contract. It's not very ambitious in terms of targets. It was projected for fiscal year 2026 at 15%. The fiscal year 2027 is a little timid, shy, less than 10%. Can we do better? Can we expect better?
That is our goal. However, understand that the development of projects takes about 3 years minimum from concept, from design,
So an annual KPI is very difficult
It's very
to-
difficult.
Right.
We can move that number significantly over 2 or 3 years, where we are, part of what we're doing is implementing strategies to make sure that we have the right consultant, to your point, that we hold them responsible for the work that they're producing, so that we can minimize the change orders from that point of view. when we talk about scoping, I think you heard me mention in the beginning, scoping the project properly from the beginning helps to reduce the number of change orders that you get as you go through the process. So I'm hoping that I can say in 3 years, we can take that number to below 10, because I think we definitely can do it with the proper strategies in place.
And I think for conclusion from my part, I would congratulate the vision of our city manager, new city manager, for creating that department. Because I think in the long term, maybe not every year, it might actually have a huge financial impact, savings, delivery on time. And so there's a big expectations for your department, but it might have a big impact. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think with the vision of Manager Williams, we anticipate to see that in the couple of next years. So,
Yes,
good luck.
that is our goal.
Good luck.
That is our goal.
And good work.
Thank you.
Glad to hear your emphasis on good scoping, because I know you have a very large portfolio of execution to do. So my question is, just derives from some capital work that I did in Washington DC, and it seemed like our system functioned best when we had these interdisciplinary teams of capital experts, building experts, budget experts, kind of, coming together. Will that be part of the department's portfolio of providing sort of the capital expertise to combine with the financial expertise as we formulate new capital projects?
So, I think the way that I like to work is very collaboratively. And you asked, how do I work with Brad in the beginning? And I wanted him to say it, but he didn't say it.
Say it.
We work collaboratively. And whenever we have a question that is outside of our expertise, we rely on our different departments. We have a really good relationship with the planning staff, with the building department, with our utilities, transportation and mobility. And because we're taking projects from all of these departments, we really do have access to folks. We have periodic meetings that are regularly scheduled. We don't have them yet with Public Works, but they will be scheduled shortly. But we have meetings where we meet for 2 or 3 hours and talk about the projects that we have going. What do they have in the pipeline? How do we coordinate these projects? What concerns do they have? Then with each submittal that we get from the consultants, we are routing these to these different departments to get their input, their insight. What do you know it's coming? So that we can minimize changes and making sure that the documents comply with city standards, complies with the needs and the master plans that I may not be aware of. And that's how we're working to make sure that we get as much input and that we get as much value from our fellow departments as we possibly can. Colette, if you could just add a little bit, talk about the relationship with procurement and how that has helped to foster. Yes, so I've had a really good experience coming here, I have to tell you guys, because I think every department is kind of given that olive branch and welcome to see it. Procurement has worked really, really well with us. We have monthly meetings where we sit down and talk about what we have in the pipeline, what can we do best, and how can we get these things out faster? Is there anything that we can do different? We're actually even talking about doing a short workshop during the summer just to review our contracts, make sure that the contract language is appropriate and not outdated. Looking at our procurement processes, what can we do? Is there any category or division that we need to make sure that we have a pool of consultants? When I talk about a cost consultants, what do we have out there? Another thing that we've looked at is, you're only giving me 1 consultant for this category. I need 3 more. I need 4 more based on the volume of work that we have. And they're going out and procuring contracts, putting out RFQs and bringing folks on so that we have a wider pool of people to task these different projects with and make sure that we have the right people, right, to do the work based on the firm's qualifications. And procurement has been incredible with that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I have the shiver, so I'm like, I didn't bring my jacket.
Okay, not so much on your budget presentation, but I'd like to take a couple minutes to talk about the parks bond. First of all, I wanna commend the city manager for really getting this back up and running and starting to fulfill some of those park needs and bringing Quentin on board to help and Colette and taking on creating the capital projects division. But what I would like to talk about is the expectation, so that the community understands really what we're facing here. We have $200 million. There were how many parks identified in that?
97.
97. You have tier one, you have tranche one
80
already,
million.
and then you have tranche two,
60 million.
60 million. Then the rest comes, but we know we're already having budget overruns significantly on some of the signature parks. Is each one of those 97 parks, were there money earmarked to each individual park, or is there a pool of the 200 million, hopefully trying to get to all 97?
So each project was earmarked a certain amount, some to a lesser extent, with a lesser scope, but each park was assigned a certain amount of money.
So are you obligated under the bond to spend it on that park, or can you reallocate it? Does the commission have the authority to reallocate?
The commission has the authority to de-scope or adjust the scope or adjust the funding on the projects. So as I think May 5th, we brought 4 projects that had budget shortfalls to the commission, presented what was going on and made sure that we identified funding sources for that. Part of what we're doing is analyzing every single project, the financials, right? I think I mentioned that. And the idea of this is within the implementation plan, the phasing of the prioritization of the projects, making sure that we identify where we need funds, and then start to work at how we can address it. For those that are ready to go, we can look to see if we can use park impact fees or park bond interest monies. For those that are very early in the design stage, we may have to look at what the scope can afford. Right? This is that early planning scoping that I'm talking about. What can we afford? If we cannot afford the scope, we will have to bring it back to the commission and say, hey, we have a problem. This is what we can afford, this is what we cannot. And that's a process that we're working on. But we're also looking at what grants are out there that would suit the individual project scopes of work. If it's a waterfront project, can we go and get money from the Florida Inland Navigation District? Last night I said fine, and they're absolutely correct. I wanted to make sure I was right today. So I want to make sure that we look at each project and look at the scope purposefully. How are we going to get this done? And I'll tell you, my team meets on these projects collectively every 2 weeks. We look at where the projects are. What are our challenges? I think they may be annoyed with me because I ask them every day, what are we doing? Where are we doing? Where are we? What's the next steps? Because we have to take that approach as we're moving forward and trying to, get good momentum.
Well, and I think the sooner we know the expectations we know some of the shortfalls,
Yes.
the sooner we realize the expectations that we're not going to be able to do all 97 projects. We need to let the community know. And I would hate that if we have, I hypothetically throw this out, $500,000 for one park, and that only covers the design. And I've seen this happen many times in the city. They'll get it to the design phase, and guess what? It goes in a folder, it goes up on a shelf because there's no funding to complete the project. So to me, spending the money on design is wasteful spending if we know it's not gonna come to completion.
I agree with you totally, and one of the things that procurement has worked with us on is identify, and I think it was actually on yesterday's agenda, a qualified vendors list. So we're looking at non-traditional procurement methods that will allow us to move the projects along without the burden of full design fees. So for example, we have projects with just walkways and benches to be installed. Can we use park staff to do that? Or do we have to bring a consultant in? And where we do have to bring a consultant, this pool is able to come in and get that work done without us paying $200,000 or $300,000 for $200,000 worth of work. And so that's why we're working to see how, what options there are and making sure that we get the tools through our procurement department. And that's working out so far. So some of the work that's ongoing in some of the parks right now, I think next week we started Harbordale. Last Monday we started at Peter Feldman Park, Esther Davids Park. We're going directly to the vendor and saying, hey, we want for you to come in, let's work on a design for the playground, we get it approved by the community, you go ahead and install it. So that way we're able to save on the AE fees, cause $500,000 does not go very far. And so for those projects, we're trying to develop strategies.
Okay, good. Since we took some time on the parks bond, I'll just go round robin to the entire board. Do you have any follow-up questions as it pertains to the park bond or clarification? Good. Yeah, I think the sooner we communicate to the community as we get further into this, what we could do and what we can't, and what we can afford and what we can't afford, and the reality of it, then we have to be proactive in letting the community know so that there's not that expectation just lingering out there.
Managing expectations.
I agree.
Okay, Linda, you good?
Yes, thanks, Chair. No further questions from me, but yes, definitely thanks for taking on the, obviously the Parks Bond is a huge challenge, and looking forward to, what comes next.
That was one of the biggest elephants you probably got handed to you coming on board.
Yes, she was warned.
What's that?
She was warned.
And she still came.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you again to your staff and everyone, so you can feel free to leave or stay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, because we're gonna talk about the presentation, so. Okay, I have 6:14, so we have, take a few minutes to talk about, let me, Ron or Laura, you wanna start out what the format's gonna be for the June 16th joint workshop, and then how project that was a brainchild of Olivia will fit into that time frame, and then we can start drilling in on that presentation. Sound like a plan?
Yes.
Okay.
So thank you, Chair. That was a great job for the team getting through in a good amount of time, so we have time to talk about this, so that's great news. So at your June meeting with the City Commission, there are a few topics that we include each year. The first item will be at your June 10th meeting, the city manager is going to share with you the preliminary budget. At that meeting, we ask that you make a recommendation on the millage rate, if you'd like to make one to the commission, and the fire assessment fee. So those are the two items that you'll have the opportunity to weigh in at your June 10th meeting and report back to the city commission at your joint workshop on the 16th. So that'll be one item that's reviewed. Staff takes time at that meeting to also review the preliminary budget that we share with your team, with the city commission at the joint meeting. And I sent you all a link to that video. One thing that we're planning to change this year is because there's only an hour available. We're planning to do the Stantec presentation at the conference meeting, which is scheduled for 1:30 p.m. So those are typically the three things. You make the recommendation on the millage rate and fire assessment fee. You'll make the presentation, we'll make the presentation and you'll weigh in on the preliminary budget. And then the third thing was the long-term financial sustainability, which is moved. The thing that's new this year that your team has asked to present is the joint, at the joint meeting is the presentation on your special projects. So we will have 1 hour. If we can dedicate a half of that hour to the preliminary budget and the recommendation from the BAB on the millage and the fire assessment, that'll give you a half hour to share and interact with the commission on your special project reporting. So what staff did was, you all shared a lot back with each other before in the month of April. And so staff had sent a summarized presentation that shared some of the key takeaways from that meeting with you. We did receive some feedback from Jason, and I believe Erica asked for feedback by the end of next week from everyone else. The intent was just to kind of summarize some of the key things. You know, you all did a full presentation, you spent so much time. We wanna make sure we capture, you know, the key takeaways that your fellow members shared. and then any key information you wanted to make sure you shared. So Jason made some modifications to his information. I think we're kind of hoping that others would share some information too. And based on my conversation with the chair, the intent would be for the chair to present those slides on behalf of the full BAB back to the commission, maybe take 15 minutes and assume that the commission's gonna have some feedback as well for about 15 minutes. So that was kind of the plan we put together for how we saw that June meeting going. If you had other feedback, we can, make modifications. Or did you have anything else to add?
No, I think the most important thing is this is really something that you all took on as a board, and so however you all would like to facilitate that discussion, we're here to support you all through that, and we're really here to listen to make sure that we're doing the things that you all are aligned with what you all have as a vision for that meeting.
Can I say something, Chair? And I'm addressing my colleagues mostly here. With all due respect to staff and the incredible work you help us accomplish, I think it should be our voice. We are the voice of the residents. We have been appointed by mayor, city commissioners, and we should actually put together a consistent approach, a strategic approach to those questions. I think whatever the constraint of timing, I think we should do our best to have a compelling storyline and show the in-depth work that we did. Those are not pieces of a puzzle thrown in a few slides. It should be better. That's why I made the effort of preparing a structure that I'd like to have the opportunity to, you may have read it, but to share with you and comment today. And if we can agree on that, when you go to a restaurant, I'm gonna use an image. When you go to a restaurant for a pizza, you don't expect when you order your pizza, and I'm the commission here, and the BAB is a restaurant. You don't expect the waiter to bring you uncooked dough on one plate, some olives and some anchovies on another side, and some tomatoes, and you do it yourself. The commission wants us to have a strong recommendation and POV, point of view. We can deliver that, we should deliver that, it's our credibility. There is anticipation from the commission that we've built on, and I think we should be better than just a few slides that are very light, that have no background in terms of number and trends that I took the effort of bring to you from the books that I went through digitally for the past 4 years. So I'd like the opportunity, if the chair will allow it, and my colleagues, to share that structure with you live and to give you a taste of what we could do together as at that joint commission workshop. Can I have this opportunity for 20 minutes?
Sure.
Can I get the presentation on the screen?
Is this the one that was sent out that I'm looking at?
Yes.
Okay.
And
My only concern, there's no way we're gonna cover this
So no, so
in 30
Chair,
minutes.
to be clear, and I'm gonna present that and I'm gonna explain that, because, sending documents without context is not very helpful for our teamwork. So that's why I'd like you to understand where I came from, what's the intent, and how we can proceed.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Because I read through your presentation last night. I mean, clearly you put a lot of work into it, but I'm just curious because there are some slides that pertain to like City Hall and things like that, which you have question marks next to some of our names to present. And we really haven't had presentations other than what I've read in the Sun Sentinel or what we see on, but we haven't had as a board full presentation on.
So to that,
I
point, Melissa, absolutely. I always, and I think we explained that during the first joint commission workshop, or I don't know if I remember if you were there, but.
I was not, sorry, yeah.
So there was an interest in hearing our recommendation for fiscal balancing act for 2027. But the question of City Hall obviously is a big question, has big repercussions, not maybe on this year, and they were interested in hearing what BAB could say. Maybe we won't have final numbers, but we can certainly have an approach. It's like working with two eyes. We have the fiscal responsibility and the fiscal conservative approach as BAB, and we have the piece of the puzzle of the City Hall. We may not focus a lot of slides on City Hall. I have a few that I actually put together that might be interesting, maybe for the commission to have as an appendix, not in the presentation. What I suggested in my structure is basically the storyline. So I'm gonna go very quickly, and I'm gonna show you that it's a basis that we can cut from. I'd rather have too rich and all the ingredients in the pizza rather than uncooked dough and some olives on the side. So the idea is, if I can get to the next.
I wanna go back to Melissa's comment, and I think it's important that the entire board understands the most recent direction as of even yesterday's commission meeting and the interaction with our city manager on where are they gonna be at on June 2nd and where are they gonna be at on July? Okay, and I think a lot of it's been pushed back to the July date.
July 2nd.
And it was my interpretation that I think after the July 10th, the commission will want us to weigh in after we know more of the facts. Because on June 2nd, we're not gonna know anything.
Right.
So what I'm
Like you start- yeah.
so what I'm suggesting to answer that is maybe we don't present anything about City Hall, but at least take a look at what I suggested, and maybe there are some elements of decision-making or information that the commission might appreciate from BAB. It may not come from city staff, it may not be, as research as maybe some people would like. But I think it shows that we have taken into consideration that dimension and how it would impact the budget and the millage rate decisions, because it has a huge impact. Whatever the financing and whatever the existing building or new building, new construction. So forget about the 5 slides of the City Hall, if that's something we push to July. But let's focus on the fiscal year 2027, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and because, and I wanna thank you for your work. It's just like on one of them, you're 150 million for an existing building, versus a new building, 267 million. To me, that 150 is an arbitrary number. What do you?
Well, actually,
we're
I
gonna
have.
get drilled on that, and we're not experts.
No, we're not.
So
You're right.
that's why I don't wanna go down that path.
No, but I put some numbers as placement and some rough numbers to make a contrast between the two versions in terms of price per square footage. And I think that's where we can give some reference numbers and then land on how does it impact the millage rate and see the budget gap. So if we decide that it's not something we want to do or push to July, that's perfectly fine. I didn't ignore it in my presentation because I think it's part of the same issue of can we afford and what can we afford. But let's focus on the structure. I would start with diagnostic.
Can I just ask one clarification?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Olivier, I definitely want to hear your presentation. I know we're going through Olivier's presentation, and just to understand that the conceptual framework Budget Advisory Board Joint City Commission workshop drafts that were also provided, is that I guess, Laura, was that meant to be kind of just a concept or a guide of something that we might be presenting to commission? And so are we in a sense just now comparing, what staff has provided versus something that Olivier is putting forward? I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with everyone.
Thank you for your question, Melinda. So what staff did was, in April, each of the board members had like extensive presentations that were shared. And staff understood that you all couldn't work together offline. So what we tried to do was to capture some of the key takeaways from the meeting where you all presented to each other in April and put them in just a few slides with the key takeaways that we picked up from the discussion. So that's what we put forth and asked for BAB members' feedback to provide through Erica again on the topics. By way of example, Anid had some economic related information. We tried to summarize what was discussed related to the economic information and some key takeaways from the BAB. And we thought, well, maybe she'd wanna add a slide with some of the information, maybe not the full presentation, but a few of the slides. So that's what staff was trying to coordinate. What Olivier is suggesting is he would like to use this format instead. So that's sort of, we put forth one version and we are fine with whatever you all want to do. Olivier just had a more comprehensive, longer presentation that he would like to go through first, and we can do either. We can incorporate any of the aspects of Olivier's into the conceptual framework. We can incorporate any of the stuff that we captured from your presentations into his. We don't really mind, as Yvette mentioned, either way.
To clarify, Melinda, if I may, the idea was to have a source, to have a storyline, to have a logical suite of questions that are all intricate to the and leading to the millage rate. And there were more elements of research about millage rate. And when I say the naked picture is not only the 41193, but all that we pay for, fire assessment and sanitation, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the central view of this structure that I'd like to comment now, if you don't mind, is the view from the residents who are our customers. That's why the affordability factor has an impact on millage rate. And quantifying the revenue stimulation that we identify through AI example, through P3s, and possibly with Melissa's subject matter. Look at budget reform that Jason put some content towards. All those pieces are brought together in that approach. So I'm gonna go ahead and share with you what the idea is, and then we can decide if it's an approach that you're interested in, and we can finalize the content. We can say, not this slide, no need to cover this, it's too much here, and that's perfectly fine, but at least I wanted a rich content and not 5 slides that are pieces of the puzzle thrown on the table, which I feel is not gonna bode well from the ballot. So quickly, we start from the high-level picture diagnostic of the trends of the past years of the budget. And there are some takeaways that are concerning. And the fact that expenses have, grown a lot compared to revenues, and some revenue sources are stagnating or growing less. So we need to start from that. Then we established a BAB approach. The subject matters didn't come from nowhere. We said we identify 6 buckets. You may remember them, and the CRA was one of them, the optimization of revenue was one of them, et cetera, et cetera. Then we show some examples of those approaches, those 6 buckets of interest. And then we land on what does that mean to optimize in terms of savings or potential savings, and what kind of impact it has on millage rates. And then we take a look at affordability factor to remind the commission and everybody who works at the city that we serve residents who find more and more difficult to pay for the bills coming from municipality and other elements of their life. Millage rate, naked picture, I'll go through this. And we can forget the new city hall dimension, but I'm gonna comment very quickly. So I'm gonna go very quickly through, basically the takeaway is, there are concerning trends in the past 3 years, and we have the receipts to prove it. I didn't make up numbers, they all come from the books, and you can challenge them if you want, but we need to start from a high-level perspective that I don't think we have done for years, and that the city commission, I don't think I've realized. To have, talked to some commissioners about it, they were interested in hearing about it. The recommendation, the high level, the story, could be this one. It doesn't have to be those words, but it articulates from A to E. A, city budget has grown to an unsustainable overhead. The key revenues like ad valorem and as a fund rely more and more from increasing the burden on our residents. Property tax, fire assessment, utilities, etc. Slowing of real estate development, potential state reform of property tax and macroeconomic uncertainty, with higher cost of goods, combined with a slowing revenue, will inevitably continue to create fiscal challenges beyond this year, even if City Manager Williams finds with her magic wand to actually make this budget work. But it will come back, and remember the Stantec projection showed that it was coming back, even if we addressed with a millage rate increase this year, it was coming back in 4 years. Reforming recalibration of salaries and fringe benefits and ops budget through efficiencies and better cost recovery can help prepare our city for long-term financial sustainability. Millage rate policy changes, if carefully approached from this overall context and dynamics, can help recenter the budget around residents' affordability. That's where the central piece should not be missing. And then, let me finish. A new city hall, whatever its formal format cost, would largely impact on an already heavy capital obligation and operating budget, and could append an already difficult balancing act. So that could be our storyline, and behind that, we can go.
Listen, I wanna go back to D first. Explain that a little simpler in layman's terms, because that's what we're gonna have to explain to the commission what we mean. Because in that short window, we're gonna have to hit bullet points
So
and
it's
have a
right
quick
there.
explanation.
So it's right there, because behind those points that are high level, articulation of our recommendation, we have the receipt behind. So the approach of the BAB was the 6 buckets. Let's look at leveraging on one side and leaning on the other side. And in leveraging, you have revamped the revenue growth, reevaluate the CRA fund, utilize maybe excess fund balance to a certain extent, and leaning, explore budget reform, and identify obsolete redundancy. Then we can go to not so much detail, but these charts show that the revenue growth is declining, and in the past has been, and in the future is set to five-year financial revenue forecast. So we bring the receipt. The key takeaway is at the bottom, and we can change the wording if you'd like. That would be subject to discussion, but that's an example of how we bring the receipt. Business tax revenue need to redress. We can show how, and I put some presenters because I'd like us to be able to reflect that teamwork. And with all due respect to Chairman Bill Brown, I think we should all show that we contributed to that, and it's a consistent strategic approach. So I propose that Samantha, maybe as a business owner, would like to present that part, and we would obviously discuss it, and she has to be comfortable with it. But it shows that there was a BAB analysis versus what the HDL had suggested. It was not possible, so we are basically looking at ways of increasing declining revenue. There were some ideas from revenue events hosted in our city. It was presented to the city commission. This is another example. Basically, and maybe we don't need to show that one, but I made a lot of research to evaluate how much those city-sponsored public space activation events and the private events, and most of them, the 5 top, bring a lot of dollars for those organizers, and how our fair share of revenue in the city or cost recovery could be evaluated. So I had some ideas, but we don't have to present them. Melissa could speak to how we can approach P3s to help stimulate revenue, or have an approach built in with revenue generating to big capital project and Holiday Park, New City Hall, one-stop shop replacement. I'm sure something will come online. So there are some questions behind that. Melinda could speak to how we can help present a comprehensive assessment every 2 years regarding the metrics of success, the foundation to future funding, recalibration of the CRA. We could have give examples of optimization through AI with a top-level commentary and 1 or 2 pilot program examples. That's part of the budget reform. Jason could speak to what he already started with budget reform framework and short-term expenditure strategy, stop the bleeding. I added some examples of the city of Chicago that, was able to find 10% on their corporate fund in terms of, so those are benchmarks on a $17 billion budget, let's take inspiration from other city government reform methods that can make a difference. I was very focused on the budget reform to targeting reduction in cost of salaries, spending per capita, ops budget for every department. We can show part of that or not all of that, but at least it gives a quantification. And I'm gonna go to the bottom line. The bottom line is here, and that's a key interest in that approach, is that you can put some amount of savings or potential optimization behind every one of those buckets of interest. And if we research further and we work with staff, we can see that we can aim for an overall $60 million in optimization. What $60 million, what does that mean? Well, you know, if I project, and I'm reading in the tea leaves for the proposed fiscal year 2027, the general fund, $550 million, $7 million per 0.1 millage rate. There are two ways of translating that in policy option. Either we cover potential reduction in ad valorem, or we represent 0.8, not 1 point, of millage reduction. So we can say either we give some relief to taxpayers, or we focus on city fiscal solvency. I want to then go to the work of ANID, the affordability factor with some data that I had researched myself that shows that 50% of our residents are economically fragile. I need to research the local fiscal impact, taxes and fees, and the economic profile, and that it takes a lot of money in this city to raise a family of two. So we can complete those charts. And then Max could have spoken about the millage rate versus fire assessment. But I felt that we should go further and show with some research that I've done and that you can actually challenge and review, that some Broward County municipalities were able to reduce millage rate in the past 5 years. So 9 cities kept their millage rate constant, 9 cities reduced their millage rate, and 8 cities raised their millage rate. So it's not a total, performance that the base millage rate for our city was constant for 19 years. Then what I wanted to show the city commission and everybody here is when I looked at my tax bill, there is beyond, sorry it's a little small, but the other trim layers from our city add 1.44 millage point, that's 35%, to the base 41193 for an average resident. So it's significant, 35%. And it's the fire assessment, the sanitation, et cetera, et cetera. So I looked at the benchmark tax rate across Broward County municipalities from Marty Kiar. It's available for everybody to see. And I saw that the true compound tax rate, 83% of the 40 other Broward County municipalities, not Fort Lauderdale, which stands in the lowest tier, so we're good, they lowered it since 2021. So they were able to do it.
I have a question on
Go
that
ahead.
though, because
I was ready for more questions
to
at the end.
remember when we were looking at all this a couple meetings ago from Stantec, that some of them reduced it, but they increased it and then they reduced it over time. And ours has remained the same. I'm talking
If you
about
look
other
at the
cities.
total like 20 years.
Huh?
You're saying if you go back long
Right,
enough
and I'm
do,
saying
like,
we've stayed the same
yeah,
for
you're
whatever
good.
it is,
Yeah.
17 years or 18 years.
Yeah,
But they've increased them over time and then come down.
Yes, but what I was showing that there was an average, and Fort Lauderdale is not necessarily on the highest, but there is an evolution down that's possible. And you've seen that the school board, some other, Miami-Dade was contemplating a reduction in millage rate last year under the Democratic leadership. So there are lots of organizations beyond cities, municipalities around us that have actually performed reduction in millage rate. We tend to always think we need to feed the beast and we need to increase the millage rate if we don't have enough money to make this year. And I think there is also reverse logic and a look at, from the BAP perspective, that we should have in mind for our residents is, can we actually not increase the millage rate or even do better by some saving targets and some reallocation and prioritization? Can we actually give some degree of relief? The mechanic of the logic needs to be exposed. I'm not saying to the commission, this is what you should do. I'm showing the repercussion of $60 million in potential optimization of the budget and how it can impact the millage rate. So I'm gonna come to it in there. So we can give some examples. And again, they're not set in stone, but when you have a relief policy priority, we give a meaningful relief for, sorry, my mouth is a little dry, for residents and a drastic budget cut. So the 60 million can be a lot of savings from the city parts, budget cuts. You can call it something else if you don't like budget cuts as a term, optimization, reallocation. And you can give residents relief for a millage decrease of 10%. Or you can do a partnership. You can say to residents, help us help you. So we're gonna do our part in budget cuts, and you're gonna make a little effort on the millage rate. So I'm not opposing millage rate increase or up to a millage rate reduction. I'm showing the commission how those numbers have concrete repercussions. From a 60 million, it could be 50, it could be 30, it still translates in millage rate policy. And I think that's what makes it land and concrete to the city commission, to show that we have actually thought of those different dimensions and their impact. And then the new city hall component, I want to quickly say that I took some numbers from different benchmarks to show in terms of square foot, price per square foot, the difference from where we started with the new construction in September, November, with $1,100 per square foot average. Then the average 400 per square foot for existing building opportunities. To be confirmed, and again, if we're not ready in June, we'll have more numbers in July. I showed the update of how it's going with the latest FCHP proposals, and the price is now $1,300 per square foot after reducing the 200,000 square feet from 300. And then I looked at some other examples that I researched, either in terms of new construction for new city halls in Miami, Colorado, different sizes, different budgets, different cities, not small, minuscule cities, and some renovations. And you can have some microeconomics of benchmarks, and that gives an idea. Also, the Government Finance Officers Association gives some national average. We don't have to present that. I think reminding the commission that the public input.
Can you go back to that slide for a second?
I'm sorry?
Just wanna look at something. Can you go back to that slide?
Yeah.
With the price per square foot. Forward, yeah. Miami-Dade spent $2,200 a square foot.
So I don't, I've done that research like 3 weeks ago, so it's not all fresh in my memory because there's a lot.
I don't know if it's correct or not. If it's correct, it's correct.
But well, I cross-reference, and I count on us and staff to decide if we present some of the examples or not. But microeconomics, you see based on 4 new construction, $900 per square foot, and renovation happens to look much more expensive. And then there's a nation average, but that includes small cities, big cities. So it gives benchmarks. But if we don't show that, that's perfectly fine. And maybe that's just a warm up towards what we could bring in July or later. But if we can have a point of view on that, I'd like you to digest it and remember there was a public input 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And the public was not really, so warm about a new city hall because. Well,
I attended those meetings. There was a lot of public input, and people wanted a new city hall.
Okay, so here's the facts of the takeaways of the remaining city hall survey 2024. I just took directly all those things. I didn't invent anything. the 60% of the people that were in the workshop said balance the cost with the need expressed by the community and city leadership. But when you see how much would you be willing to pay annually to support a new city hall, 32% say $0. So how do we make that pay? And you know what? 34% of them said, yeah, maximum $93 per year average between, is approximately $93. So it gives you a temperature of what the workshop gave out. I'm just saying that's the only polling we have about the sentiment. The reaction from the community show that there is a lot of concern about the cost. I think reminding the city commission of those elements that they actually, requested from the community would be appropriate. And then we could put the city hall option in perspective with millage rate decision. But again, I'm gonna go back to the structure. And we can cut a lot of slides if you'd like, if you feel that they are too complex or there is too much data. But I'd rather have too much of a rich content rather than being light and have no backup with any numbers. So the recommendation, the structure would be, we have grown to an unsustainable overhead and the revenues are not growing as much. We have a slowing of real estate development. We're gonna see it with Marty Kiar's numbers soon. And it will create fiscal challenges and challenges. And reforming recalibration of salaries and fringe benefits and operational budget through efficiencies would be a good idea now. Millage rate policy changes, we can show some illustrations with fire assessment and with other dimensions or not. So I wanted to share that with you and see if we can work from that for a full pizza to be served rather than a few slides here and there. And we can trim. I'd rather have rich and trim down rather than starting poor. Questions?
Okay, well, go ahead, Max. And
I have input, and what I would say is, at the end of the day, the story needs to reflect our constituents, right? So at the very beginning, when we were doing the project, or when we were given the assignments, it was, which is how I did mine, which was good, better, best. Like, that should be presented to the commission as, this is the best case scenario, this is something that we're okay with, this is the best case scenario for our constituents who we represent. So I feel like where the slides have gone is, well, if we do this, it could do this, but then there's these two branches, and then those two branches have two branches, and we're already way past the narrative. So my perspective on this is, if we can come to an agreement as a board for what the story needs to be told and how we can implement all the work that we did into that singular narrative.
Absolutely.
I think that's the easiest way to do it. I think there's a lot of numbers that, to be quite honest with you, those numbers will change. So giving concrete facts is gonna be great for what we've done in the past, because those numbers are recorded. But I think for the future, it's really more a matter of, to Olivier's point, here's the amount of people who would be willing to pay for a city hall, this is how much. So maybe that's the narrative. Take that amalgamation of that number and put it into, okay, you wanna pay $23 a year for a city hall? You're in the best case scenario bucket. You wanna pay $154 a year for city hall? We're putting you in this bucket. And that represents the constituents, it represents the options and the percentages to go along with it.
But you make the city hall the centerpiece of
I'm
our.
saying that, I'm saying it,
We don't wanna do that.
stretch that across
Okay.
all of the components, that's all.
That can be.
Yeah, and my whole thing with the city hall is not that we shouldn't be making a recommendation. Obviously, if the commission asked us to make a recommendation, great, but I feel like we have to make an educated recommendation. And we really haven't been presented at any of the we've talked about fire, police, we haven't, City
Actually,
Hall has not been presented to us.
We received a lot of communication from staff and letters from the city manager with a lot of elements about the new constructions. I mean, the project that the city commission has looked at is very specific.
okay, before we get off your point, I can sit here and tell you, but I'd rather have staff, that way you heard from them what direction they got from the commission as to when they're gonna ask the BAB to weigh in.
So I shared back with the BAB some information before, I believe it was before, not last meeting, but the meeting before. And I shared a link to the video where we got the mayor's direction and where it was discussed. And so our takeaway from that meeting, and the manager can correct me, is that they wanted it to be presented to them first in the month of July. So they wanted to hear the information from staff, and then they would like the BAB to weigh in after that. So we had put on your work plan for a presentation to be made to the BAB in your July meeting. So that was
And
the.
that would be great, I think that's my whole point,
Mhm.
is that I'm gonna say it may be the February meeting, if I'm going back correctly. Olivia, you, at the very end of the meeting, you brought up City Hall. And at the time, there was like 5 minutes left in the meeting, literally, and at the time, it was said to us, like, that's not in our purview, we're not gonna be making a recommendation on City Hall. Now we're, let's just say 2 months later or whatever, 2.5 months later, and if we have to make a recommendation, like, I love that you're gonna present to us, because I don't feel like we have had a presentation on City Hall, you know, new build versus buying this building made to us to make an educated recommendation to the city commission. And we are looked at, we're quoted in the Sun Sentinel, like, I don't feel comfortable making a recommendation personally, not having had the information given to us. We've gotten things from police, we've gotten things from fire, we get from Parks and Rec, we get, but we haven't had something specifically or a meeting specifically on City Hall.
So let's wait.
That's my only
So
point.
let's wait July. If we get some numbers, we can put that away and separate it from an educated approach to fiscal year 2027 without the consideration of the city hall. I just included it in my approach because I gathered numbers that were.
Right.
It's gonna derail the conversation,
so
sort of like
ca-
it's dominating this one.
Yeah.
Kind of
It's gonna dominate every conversation, so I
Possibly,
don't
yeah.
know that it's
Okay.
that
So
it's necessary.
So to bring closure on this issue on City Hall, we'll wait until after the July presentation. I will mention at the workshop that we stand ready after the July meeting for any direction that we receive from the commission as to making, to research or recommendation and to give input from the BAB's perspective. And leave it at that at City Hall, okay? Is there a way, Oliver, that we could take some of your slides and work it into the format that staff, and here's why I say this. The commission is so regimented now of seeing that type of slide presentation for all their workshops and all their conference,
It's a formatting, that's
Yeah.
not a problem for
and
me.
I would like to see,
I do
so
it
that
my
they can
way, but-
understand it.
Streamline.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
And that's, I think staff attempted to do that, so.
Yeah, but I think there is a difference between so light that we seem to throw things without a strategic approach and skeleton. So I'd like that to be sort of a balance between what we got, that I found a little, pieces of puzzles or a pizza or a kit, and something that has actually a logical escalation and logic. So if we can reconcile those two, my format is just the way I do it. It's not important. The content is important. The approach is important.
And we gotta figure out how we fit that into that 30-minute window, because they're gonna cut us off right at 1:30 and go to the regular meeting.
I would argue that I would take a little more time, because I'm sure there will be, like there was at the last joint commission workshop, lots of interest from commissioners who asked specific questions. You chimed in, you allowed every one of us who was present to chime in, and they seemed interested and not bored, so.
But we started at 11:30
No, I know,
and
but
our meeting didn't start.
what I'm
we
saying
ran-
is,
yeah.
the subject is worthy of us finally delivering a baby that looks like a grown-up and not something that is a flop. I think we have a challenge that we need to rise up to. That's my concern.
I just don't wanna be halfway through and then get cut off by the mayor.
So let's find, so let's trim, let's work on it, and let's have at least a skeleton that we can agree on, a storyline.
I think also I did appreciate, and you'd have to go back to that slide where you talk about 100,000 of our residents are
In economic fragility.
right.
And I took it from stats that I gathered,
Yeah, I mean, that's an important slide to.
absolutely. I think
know,
so, and I wanted to add
remember.
that to Annie's work, because she also went further with the cost of what it takes to raise two children, and she worked with staff on that. So if two slides, on the affordability factor, remember, we are the voice of residents. We need to remind our leadership that we need to work within the means of our residents, otherwise it's population replacement.
That came from you, from your
So-
presentation?
Not this slide.
I had prepared that 6 months ago.
Where was the presentation we discussed how many people work in the city and come in on a daily basis?
That was the one that I did on millage where Laura and
Yeah.
staff had come to me and said, I would change the initial thing that I had submitted to them because they're going,
I don't know if you did.
It's 500,000
There's a
during the day.
perspective on this of
Melinda, okay.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to comment, no, thanks.
I just read, go ahead,
Oh,
Rich.
no, but fine. I'll go. So, did you look at that and say how, is there I mean, I'm sure you guys do as a city, but is there any low hanging fruit without it being a deterrent as to when you talk about residents and the choices, cut city staff or for lack of a better term, or have the millage rate changed on residents? Are there any programs we're seeing in other cities? I might have asked this in that meeting of how they better quote unquote tax folks that are coming in and using the resources of the city on a daily basis at 5x what our population is or whatever that was.
well, in the joke by Mayor Trutillus in that workshop was we could put a toll road on Broward.
Sure,
Joke.
but cities do that, and actually I hated it when Manhattan said they were doing it and it worked. But that was traffic and a whole other issue, but in general, have we as a city looked at what some of these larger cities are doing? In New York, LA, even Miami, I don't know, that have commutes
Transit.
into
Transit.
the transit cities. Does anybody have any ideas? Is something we've looked at? I feel like that's another choice. Again, I'm not telling you how to run the city, I just would figure that'd be something that we looked at. Cause the number was stark, I don't remember what it was.
I'm assuming we get some of those dollars come from the county, the transportation dollars?
So we get a share of the surtax dollars for transportation, but not for like public safety and the other services we need to provide.
So you're talking about surtax on public
Yeah, I mean,
safety.
different tourism taxes on things, I know that we do, maybe, I don't know where they look. Obviously, it's a sales tax thing, I don't know how that eventually comes down to us, I don't know if there is
They're shared through the.
and then are there increases in that we could do at the city level?
So, one of the things Laura's team shared with you all when we were looking at revenue enhancements was that we're really preempted for doing a lot of the localized taxes. So we receive revenue through the state shared tax program, so on various things from gas to some of the sales taxes, we do receive a small percentage of it. What we have as a city that is more under our control are things like the ROI that we get from the parking funds, right? Parking is, when you have so many visitors that are coming in, parking is one
And
of
there's a
the
balance,
things-
you don't want it to be a deterrent either.
Exactly, and so those are the kind
And
of things
residents
that
go
are
to the
under our
beach
control.
and get pissed when it's high.
Right, and that's why we have some resident
It's
parking
hard.
rates and those kind of things, but those are the things that are more under the city's control that we can use as levers. We really don't have the ability to
No.
institute new taxes.
And you wanna be business friendly, you don't wanna be a deterrent to businesses, but it's hard to isolate, I understand that it's very hard to isolate. I was just curious, cause it seems like maybe there's low hanging fruit in there, but it's a bit of a conundrum.
Melinda?
Oh yeah, thanks for the update, Olivier. And I just wanted to say though, on the CRA, I will have to say that I don't think that I'm ready. Well, I had agreed with staff, and I think we talked at a previous meeting, that this topic, was gonna be scheduled for later in the year. And I do see your slide, Olivier, and I understand, like, it's some general, requests and some things that I did discuss with staff. I would have to say though, I don't think I would be ready, and I don't think it's probably the right time, just with their September 2025 renewal, to bring this up in June, just on our previous talk about the timing.
I understand, Melinda, but the idea
Yep.
was maybe to give a sort of an update on what the thought process is, and you could share something without getting definitive. It's not necessarily our final recommendation, but you illustrating to the commission that it's one of the subject matters that we are looking at through your leadership, and we bring it into the big picture. I think that was the idea.
Okay, yeah, just that it's one of the components, but I wouldn't have a clear, obviously recommendation and certainly staff and I have not prepared the presentation in line with the timeline we had discussed at this point yet.
So let me throw this out you will go ahead, Jason, you had a comment first.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, I think maybe we need to talk more about the storyline itself, because we got focused on City Hall. But my storyline, and I am maybe a bit newer to our, our budgeting enterprise, so to speak, but my personal storyline would be more neutral. I see us as in kind of a steady state. Our millage rate has been steady for 17 or 19 years. We're balancing our budget, and our citizens want us, our neighbors want us to live within our means. They also want really good services, police, fire, rescue, public works, parks, bond, and the like. So my storyline is a little more neutral, and my storyline is also developing, but I think we need to talk more about that aspect as well.
Yeah. And I found concerning that one of the slides showed, well, if you cut the budget by 14.4%, well, you know what services are gonna get cut at 14.4%?
Yeah.
And I can tell you from the community, they don't want services cut, they're happy with the services overall they're getting. And if we come in and say the citizens are saying they want services cut as a result of a 14.4% budget decrease, as chair, I won't say that.
No, but that was not the idea. The idea is, can we, without reducing service levels, optimize and find ways? So we talk about AI, we talk about manage better with the same money or maybe less. And I think that's a direction we would encourage the city manager to look, towards. There's no magic wand. I mean, that's the direction of the thinking. I think the growth of our city government is going up and up, and we have projection that shows that we're not gonna make it. So if we keep the storyline neutral, well, let's continue the way we've done it. I mean, that's simple, we don't have to worry about it.
Through the chair,
Go ahead.
just wanna share that we are looking for some efficiencies and where we can streamline and reduce in our budget. We do know that we have some increases that are beyond our control, but we are trying to identify not 14% per se, but some percentage of a decrease in some of our traditional expenditures so that we can accommodate other challenges that we may have and other initiatives that we have for the coming year, so.
Because right now, it's a floating target, or, you got salaries and benefits increasing at an average rate of 5% annually, ballpark.
More with the merit card and
6%, say.
closer to 7 or 8%.
How much?
According to my statistics in the past.
So usually
So-
it's
So you got whatever percentage it is, then you have the assessed values is gonna, we've been fortunate to have double digits, we're not seeing that trend now last couple of years. And with the slow real estate development and everything, it's going to decrease for a few years. And then with strategic cuts that the city manager's having to make to get that in between from the increases just based on salary and benefits to the lowering of assessed values percentages to get that strategic cut to balance those out. And whatever that percentage is, 3 to 5% is a good mark if it's even attainable, but not at 14.4%.
No, but remember, those numbers, I worked on them last year, and they were examples exaggerated to show the impact that it could have on millage rate. If we provide 0.1 on the millage rate of relief, it may be symbolic, and by the way, that's what I think Miami-Dade or Broward County did last year. So there is a history, and they did it. It didn't represent a lot, but they made that policy
When's
change.
the last time that's come up to the commission in a public setting? The millage rate?
So the
They may
commission
not.
sets the millage rate every year, so they have a conversation on the millage rate annually. The last time that they made a decision about, wasn't a reduction, it was potentially an increase, was in
Like
2019?
18 or 19.
Yeah,
But yearly, does it come, does it,
every July, the commission makes a decision on the millage rate.
So,
is it, like, Chair, are we gonna like, is that something? Is it something we're gonna push for to bring up more in a public setting at one of the meetings?
let's wait till the next meeting and cause we'll be here all night talking on that one. And I don't kick the can, cause it's 7:08 now. But I would like to see if we can't reach an agreement, and Oliver, if we take the format,
I got it.
okay, create the storyline, use some of the pertinent, the key slides into that presentation, and then the other would be like supporting documents. We can put a bullet point, or I mean, and make that refer to, make an appendix or
I
exhibit.
can do that exercise if you'd like, or I can work with
Yeah,
Laura.
but we won't
and
cover those
I understand, but we have that, we have the receipts.
And we will tell them, you know,
That's a better way
at
to
this
do it.
point, we got an exhibit or appendix.
Okay.
And please take the time to review it so when we come back at our next session, if you have
See where the
additional further
conversation
questions.
goes with the commissioners rather than laying it all out.
Max's like the good, better, best was easy to read, you know, it was factual, it was what he learned, and then he went into 3 bullets.
But it's hard to replicate on every logic. I mean, affordability factor. I mean, how can you? It's not a lens that you can apply to every subject that we covered in our subject matters. So it was great and I liked it, but I don't think we can work through that lens throughout the subject that we cover. That's my challenge. I mean, if you find a way, I'd love to, you know, I'm not self-appointed. I try to bring value to this board. Feel free to bring your bricks and your suggestion rather than reacting to it and saying, you know, it doesn't work. I'd love for us to actually be able to, maybe Melissa come back and say, here's what I tried and here's how we could approach it. And I think it's still time for us to do it before the Joint Commission workshop.
Yes, I agree. So let's work on that
So Chair,
with,
just so that staff's clear, understanding you all can't work with each other separate from this meeting, what would you like staff's role to be in between? We don't want to, you know, step on any toes. We're happy to continue to take input from the team on what they'd like to see for their areas, or what would you like to do moving forward, Chair?
I think we need to first take a stab, Olivia, working with staff to take.
To make a new baby and
in the format.
An ugly baby that's gonna be something in between, a clone. I'll try something and to simplify, and then we'll put it with appendix. Revert to that slide if you're interested in knowing more. So I'm gonna try that if you don't mind, and I will subject it I'll submit it to my colleagues for the next meeting through staff. Does it work?
Yeah, because not all the commission members are as detail oriented as you or like John Herbst that could dig into that information.
I understand that.
Without asking questions, because they could refer to it. And if we don't keep it at a higher level, we're gonna lose them from the very beginning.
I get it.
And then once you lose them.
But I wanted the content to be rich and focus on the structure. This conversation is all I wanted, is that we're able to actually have an approach that's consistent as a team and put together all pieces of the puzzle with a compelling storyline. And that's our challenge, really, and not having, again, the pizza dough on one side and the olives and the anchovies on one.
I think just instead of all the quantity of what you have, cause there's
I got
so
it.
much,
I got it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Feel it, it's quality over quantity.
We're gonna trim.
So are we still giving feedback to staff on our slide? Do you wanna add anything or remove anything from?
So why don't I suggest after my ugly baby submitted, that we discuss it at the next meeting? And you can say, hey, I'd like to add this. Rich might want to add, an example of AI optimization and what kind of impact it has in terms of quality of delivery or cost savings. I mean, we can then complete the pieces of the puzzle. That means that you can add something or say, I'd like to incorporate the economic vulnerability slide that I had put together to your research that you have done. That could be an example.
So I think just to clarify there, so like instead of us all going back to staff with individual things, Olivier's taking another stab at condensing the information and submitting that to.
And then staff will send that draft out in an email, I guess.
We can do that ahead of
The 10th.
your next meeting, which is the 10th. So, and you have a special session starting at 4 to discuss that draft and provide it.
That's when we should gel together and finalize and hopefully be ready for the June 16 Joint Commission workshop.
And we have a package with about a 30-minute time window for presentation to them. I'm being realistic.
No, and that's actually, Chair, to my point too, is would it be permissible to add supplemental, like can I also take a stab at it and send it to you and be able to sit there and go, okay,
Yeah, we
great,
can
like
send
now
it.
we've got some comparison.
I'm expecting that everybody will bring something new from, the reaction they may have or some further thinking that they may have. I'd love to see something about how do we approach P3s from Melissa. Even if it's a high-level generic framework or suggestions, at least we cover that subject. We show that there is a process and a thought process behind that from Bab. Okay?
Okay.
Quick question. Just as we're talking about, reviewing it, and I know that we don't want to recreate our slides, and that staff and Olivier will work on that. But the one thing that would be helpful is, if we do actually want to provide suggestions to staff on any of our areas, Olivier, would you be able to share the original format of the doc? Like, is it a PowerPoint?
It's a PowerPoint, but it's very heavy, and that's why I always convert it into PDF. So it's, I try to reduce it in size, but as you know, there is a lot of content. There's a lot of graphics, and even if they're saved in low resolution, it adds up. So it's, I don't know how to resolve that. Maybe a
So I think maybe one option would just be to save the link from Office so that, you're just saving it as a link as opposed to an actual document from PowerPoint. But I mean, if it's too difficult, I understand. I just was thinking for ease of some of the members actually kind of doing a little bit of modification, obviously not sending it back to you that way, but then maybe communicating with staff like, hey, this is what I'd like it to look like. That maybe having the original file.
Sort of a SharePoint logic.
Yeah, and I mean, and I guess like what I have found generally is, if you do save it, excuse me, if you're using the online version of Office, just sharing the link is the way I would suggest with PowerPoint.
Sunshine prevents that from.
Yeah, Melinda, we would just have to be very careful because usually with shareable links, it means that edits that are made by one party could be visible to the others, and we wouldn't wanna have any sunshine violations associated with that.
Yeah, and I guess what I would say is that it would just have to all be through staff. So staff would have to share, if there's a way to share the PowerPoint, staff would have to share it just as they've shared the PDF. And anything we share back would have to go to staff. But yeah, I mean, if it doesn't work, I understand. I just was finding a way to maybe we could actually manipulate some things ourselves. Excuse me.
Could I just, maybe just to appease everybody that's here for like, as we talked about before, the 100,000 residents living in, you know,
Economic
fiscal,
fragility.
economic fragility, like, would it make more sense potentially if everybody, like if Erica or you had just said like, does anybody have like one slam dunk point that you want to be emphasized from your research? And that helps frame a little bit differently later on where we can emphasize those points. We can still use the appendix, but we're emphasizing.
I can, in the ugly baby that I'm gonna try to build, I'm gonna make that up.
Okay.
So
And I
both,
think-
both
and I
of
just
you
wanna make
attack, you both can tackle it and.
And that was what staff was trying to do in the, like, asking
Right.
members
So that
to
you knew what the heck
share
we were-
their.
I like my baby better.
Okay,
The ugly baby.
I need to leave so I can pass the gavel over to Melissa.
No, we think we're on the same page as to how to move forward.
Linda, you good? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Are you baby?
We are adjourned. Right.